Thank you, Rory, for the kind introduction, and to GRSB for inviting me here today to speak to you. Of the couple of hats that Rory mentioned there, I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes talking to you about the work of the Sustainable Agriculture Initiative Platform. For those of you that don't know, I'd like to just give you a couple of words to introduce that organisation. It was started 14 years ago by Unilever, Danone and Nestlé, and has grown in that period to over 90 members currently. And it was set up then and continues now to support the development of sustainable agriculture worldwide. It covers all the major commodities. I'm going to talk to you today about the work it does in beef, but it also does work in dairy, in fruit and nuts, and in vegetable and arable crops. And SAI Platform does have a global scope, but the work that I'm going to talk to you today about in terms of beef is slightly narrower than that. SAI Platform has a vision for 2020 to implement secure and thriving agricultural supply chains and to protect the Earth's resources through widespread adoption of sustainable practices that deliver value to our members, to farmers, to farming communities and to consumers. And we've heard a number of variants of definitions from various different groups already this morning, but I do think that that focus that SAI Platform has on widespread adoption of sustainable practices that deliver value should resonate with everybody. The 90 members that comprise SAI Platform's membership are very broad. You can see there from the alcoholic beverage sector through to dairy, right through to meat. We have a footprint of members that covers the entire food and drink industry, and also organisations like my own, the Irish Food Board, Cordia. So what does the SAI Platform do? I suppose it can be described under three separate headings. First of all is about collection and exchange of information. Secondly, about harmonisation and engagement, and collaboration and action. And I think listening to the speakers already this morning in this session and the earlier section, and also on the visits that we had yesterday, the importance of harmonising the language around sustainability, making it clear that we're all on the same page, that we all understand each other, and that we engage the wider world in this issue is really important work. And I think that's why we're all here today. To give you an example of how that works in the SAI Platform context, you can see here an example of a value chain, and members of SAI Platform are engaged from farming through to trading, processing, manufacturing and retailing. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the farm sustainability assessment that SAI Platform has developed. There are a number of different FSAs, as we call them, around sugar beet, berry production. There's a project there that focuses particularly on water management in Spain, orange production in Brazil, rice production in a number of regions, and beef production in Europe. The goal of the FSA is to scale sustainable farming practices and the volume of sustainably grown agricultural products. And I think it's really important that that goal is about building scale and adoption of practices, and that is something that we have worked on for the last number of years. The scope of the FSA covers three pillars: environmental, economic and social. And I was struck when, I think yesterday morning, one of the presentations on one of the farms, the code of good practice that was described for Canadian beef. There was a comment that it takes a long time to develop some of these standards or codes of good practice, and I think anybody that's been involved in the work that we have done in the Beef Working Group and SAI Platform will recognise that trying to develop a code of practice or a set of criteria is something that's important, because it's about building consensus and doing that. So the benefits of the FSA tool, I think, are many, and they are beneficial to all the different member types that we have within the SAI Platform family, from risk assessment for individual farmers or individual companies to look at the supply chain and to use the FSA tool to identify what risks are there, to benchmark what one company or supplier might look at over another, to compare standards, because one of the issues that farmers have, it can be that different purchasers of their product have different requirements. To try and harmonise that is important. And also, finally, that individual farmers can self-assess on farm. We've taken a slightly different approach in beef that I'm going to explain to you now, where we don't actually do a self-assessment on farm. I'll explain that in a moment. The FSA is a set of criteria. It is divided into essential, basic and advanced, and depending on how an individual scores, they can be, you can see there from the chart, whether they're scored as a bronze, silver or gold. The beef working group that I'm lucky enough to chair for the last year and a bit is comprised of beef processors, retailers, food manufacturers and farming organisations. We have 17 members, some of them are in the room here, and they're a very committed and engaged group and have done a lot of work in developing a farm sustainability assessment tool for the beef industry in Europe. I was struck earlier when people were talking about how far we have come, and I remember the first meeting of the SAI Platform Beef Working Group was in 2011, and the purpose of that meeting was to try and put our heads together and see how would we react to the forthcoming FAO publication of Livestock's Long Shadow. Earlier in June this year, much like the US Roundtable, we had a strategy development session and a workshop, and we developed a vision for what we want to do as a group. And it's an ambitious one, and it is that the beef sector is recognised for delivering measurable positive impacts and continuous improvements towards key sustainability priorities. I think you'll all agree that's a much more positive place and a proactive place that I think the SAI Platform Beef Working Group, and indeed everybody that has been involved in the presentations that I've heard so far here today, that's the kind of space that they want to be in. So in detail, the SAI Platform Beef Working Group has an ambition to become part of the GRSB family. Nicole mentioned about the gathering. I think we're maybe waiting to be adopted as opposed to being full siblings. But we have a regional approach we're insofar as that we're working in Europe. We work towards the SAI principles, which are not dissimilar indeed to the GRSB ones. But the FSA tool for beef that we've developed has 115 criteria. I won't go into them in detail, but they're grouped around these areas in terms of identifying social, economic and environmental criteria, and again being scored whether they're essential, basic or advanced. So we're hoping to work with a number of organisations, another number of schemes in Europe, Origin Green, that I'm involved in myself, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that this afternoon if you care to listen. But quality assurance schemes that are working in Europe and also private company schemes. And what we've set up the FSA for beef to do in Europe is to use it as a means of benchmarking different initiatives that are taking place in different countries, so that we can identify what the gaps are between best practice and current practice, and to work in trying to engage scheme owners, various stakeholders in different countries, to try and develop a plan to identify how they're going to work together to bridge those gaps and to realise that vision of achieving measurable progress on a continuous improvement basis. So it doesn't require that there actually must be a scheme in place. Private companies, if they wish, can develop and use a programme with their suppliers, with their producers, and use the FSA as a tool in that regard also. So where are we at? After 2 years of intensive work. We have developed the FSA, we've completed it, and we're going to launch shortly a document that will identify those 115 criteria and some guidance notes with them. And we are working with a number of groups around Europe to pilot test the FSA. We're going to do a pilot test in Ireland and also in Italy and also in Poland. The purpose of that is to road test what we've developed over the last couple of years to see is it fit for purpose, to understand how difficult or how easy it will be to engage the various stakeholders and to set up programs to try and bridge the gaps that are identified and to set on the path of continuous improvement. And we're very excited about that. And I think the approach that we've taken is that we're going to go into this with a spirit of putting everything on the table and seeing how it will work. And I think it's very consistent with the approaches that we have seen in other roundtables. And if you want to learn more about that, please get in touch with myself or go to SAI Platform website and you can learn more about that.